Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Nobody could write that script. Like if you look back, there's no way, right? She's literally sitting next to him. They talk the entire flight. Remember this? They talk the entire flight. They don't even talk about where she works.
Yes.
Talk about work. He gets off they get off the plane and she hands him a business, or she says, what do you do? And he goes, I'm trying to get a job on MTV. She goes, I work at MTV. Hands him the business card and says, give me a call, I'll hire you.
I know.
Right?
I know. Well, and it was like I had, in Oregon, Nike's huge.
Yeah.
And I had read there was a Nike book written by Rob Strasser's wife that I had read. And I didn't know who Bob Woodell was.
Right.
And so I found this job, and Bob's in a wheelchair, and he says, hi, this is Bob Woodell, and I want you to come out to my house to interview.
Yeah.
I knew immediately who it was, and I was just like, Bob Woodell? Like, oh my God, this guy's famous.
Yeah. Crazy.
So anyways, I wound up, I was at Nike for 4 years. And, and I will say, in retrospect, all the jobs I had, Mike, I had bosses that reminded me of my father and that they were really tough. And you got to understand with all this, it sounds very like, wow, this guy's got his act together. I mean, I was having probably 10 to 15 legitimate panic attacks a day.
Yeah.
I mean, I would drop my kids off. Like when I went to Nike, I would drop them off at school. And as I got closer to the campus, I could feel my stomach churning. And I would literally be dry heaving. And I'd grab the handle to the door to my office or the building. And it was go time. And I would just switch.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think the reason I didn't fail was, I was born in 1956, and I was raised by a father who went to work every day and the mom stayed home. And it was ingrained in me that my job was to take care of my family.
Yeah.
And I didn't, and thank God, really, I didn't have the luxury to fail.
Right.
It was killing, that fear of failure was killing me on the inside.
Yeah.
On the outside, it actually made me successful.
Yeah. Well, it spurred you, right? It was a fire. And it was one of those things that, you look back and you're kind of like, wow, I'm really glad I was raised that way. Yeah, you had a rough time with your dad, but part of that rough time is what made you successful.
Yeah. And fear.
Some of that negativity actually turned out to be something you turned into a positive. And that's the other reason we do this podcast, right? Is you find these things out and you find out that, like, Tony Robbins talks about this a lot, and I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan, but Tony talks about this a lot at his seminars where he will pick somebody out and he'll have a conversation with them and they'll talk about how terrible their dad was or how terrible their mom was growing up. And then at some point he'll look at them and go, you really should call them and thank them.
Yeah.
Because like Tony had a horrible experience with his mom, horrible, but it made him into the person he is today. Right. And he still openly, publicly thanks his mother profusely. She's gone. She passed away, but he still is completely effusive about his thanks to her for raising him the way that she did so that he turned out the way that he did.
It's funny because that came up in therapy that, my therapist said, well, you're strong because of the way you were raised. And I had a really hard time. My dad was one of these guys, where if you succeeded at something, he wasn't a narcissist, but he was like, it's because of me or because I raised you or da 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 da. And part of my wanting to become an adult early in life was I wanted to be responsible for myself.
Yeah.
I didn't want, like, if I was a loser, I was going to own it. And if I won it, I won it on my own, you know. And one of the things I put in my first book, Reset, was fear can be a great motivator, but it can't last forever.
Yeah.
And so I had all this fear, and I started, I'm going to change subjects a little bit here. I started bleeding. Whenever I got anxious, it would hit me in my stomach, and I would dry heave or, you know, whatever. Ironically, I always felt like I was going to throw up, but I never, maybe once in my life, I actually threw up.
Right.
But I would have these feelings of dry heaving and stuff. And anyways, God, I lost my train of thought. Uh-oh.
That's right. What happened? You said something about bleeding.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So I started bleeding going to the bathroom when I was 40 years old. And I was smart enough and unashamed enough, surprisingly, to always share that with my doctor. And they would check me out and, oh, it's hemorrhoids, don't worry about it. Anyways, by the time I was 48 and I opened the book with this, I never went to the bathroom to take a poop at night. You know, it was always in the morning. And I wake up at like 2 a.m. to go to the bathroom, and I look down and it's red in the water. I mean, it's red. And I wake my wife up, and I'm freaking out. Anyways, long story short, at 48, I got diagnosed